Okay, so you'd like to solve this rational equation for x. And it sounds like you got one of the solutions, but we're wondering why you were told you only have part of the solution. Well, here's the reason why. When we get rid of this fraction here, and one way to do that is by cross multiplying, we get 20 plus 3x equals 2x squared. And as you probably saw, we can put this into ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form, which is the form of a quadratic equation. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to write 2x squared on this side, just so I have my positive x squared over here. And then over here now is 20 plus 3x. And I'll bring both terms to the other side and they'll change signs because I'm going to subtract both terms from both sides. This will become minus 3x, that's my bx, and this will become minus 20, that's my c. And now over here I have 0, so that's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's quadratic form. Now, one thing to understand about solving quadratic equations is what we're actually doing when we solve quadratic equations. A quadratic equation is in the form of, when we graph it, in the form of a parabola. And the solutions are the x-intercepts, the points where the graph, where the parabola crosses the x-axis. So when the graph looks like this, we have two solutions, two x-intercepts. And we can have at most two solutions, as you can see, because we can have at most two x-intercepts. Another possibility is that the quadratic equation would just touch the x-axis at one point and we would have one solution. Or we sometimes call it a repeated solution because we get two solutions but they're the same when we're solving the quadratic equation. And then a third case, which you'll visit later, is when the parabola is just hovering with no x-intercepts, we have no real solutions. Okay, so in this case, let's look what we have by solving this quadratic equation. And we're going to solve it by factoring. We can either, since the a coefficient is greater than 1, we can factor it by grouping, which is also called the PFS method, or we can factor it using the FOIL method, which I call the guess and check method. And I used the FOIL method, or guess and check method, and when I did that, my correct guess was 2x plus 5 times x minus 4. I guessed these first terms, which was easy because 2 is prime. Those first terms multiply to give me this first term. And I guessed these last terms, which multiply to give me this last term, and checked to see whether my outer plus my inner gave me the middle term, which it does, because minus 8x from here, it's the outer, plus the inner, which is 5x, gives me minus 3x, which is my middle term. So now it sounds like you were able to get the solution for the first part, where we want the x's that will make this quadratic equation 0. Those are the x-intercepts. Those are the x's where the y is 0, the x-intercepts. And to get those x-intercepts, we see what makes this 0, because 0 times the other factor will make it 0, and what makes this 0, because 0 times this first factor, 0 times the second factor will make it 0. So it sounds like you correctly solved for x here and found that if I put x equals 4 here, I'm going to get 0, and 0 times the other factor will give us 0. So that's one of the solutions. But there's also what will make this factor 0. So when we solve for x, take 5 away from both sides, we get 2x equals minus 5, and divide both sides by 2, we get x equals minus 5 over 2. So if I put minus 5 over 2 here, in place of this x, I'm going to get 0 times the other factor, and I get 0. It's a zero factor property. So as you can see, we have two x-intercepts, two solutions for the quadratic equation. So here is a rough sketch of our solutions. Here is x equals 4. This is that x value when y is 0. It's right on the x-axis, so y is always 0 on the x-axis. So this is the point 4, 0. That's one solution. And the second solution is over here. Minus 2.5 or minus 5 halves. 0 is the x-intercept, so minus 5 halves is the other part of the solution. The entire solution for the rational equation is minus 5 over 2, comma 4.